I'll remember when I found podcasting, I kind of had this light bulb moment of realizing, oh, this is the medium that gives the independent individual, someone who's not famous, doesn't have a big following, gives them a voice, a platform where their message could get heard by other people who need to hear what they have. I'm a firm believer that all of us have a message inside of us that is the exact message that someone else needs to hear. I have had my life change from podcasts that I've listened to, and I believe that I've been used to change some other people's lives as well. So for me, my purpose, my calling, I believe, is to be here in this podcasting space to help elevate independent voices on both sides of the microphone, whether they be a podcast host or a podcast guest. The reason I really feel it's a purpose, it's a calling, is because I'm able to be completely aligned. Mm-hmm. In former careers I've had and things I've done, I did not flow like this. There was the work Alex and the home Alex. Just don't follow the mold the world has for you. I think that the world's going to put those type of labels on all of us. When you start stepping into who you are, it's going to be weird and be different because most of the world around us is completely suppressed.
Alex, welcome. It's so awesome to be talking to you.
Baba, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here with you today.
I'd love for you to share what is your purpose and mission? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, so my entire purpose, mission, all that is actually found in the podcasting space. So I'm a full-time software founder and podcaster myself, and help and support a large community of people through my company called PodMatch. But at the end of the day, like the actual craft of podcasting isn't what I really tie my purpose and my calling to, if you will, right now. What it's really tied to is helping elevate independent voices. I realize in the world today, there's a lot of big media outlets. I'm not against any of those things, but I find that the individual voice has really been stunted, and often it's hard to hear the real stories, the things that are going on, how someone's life has been changed by meeting somebody like you, right? For an example, like it's hard to get those stories out. And I'll remember when I found podcasting, I kind of had this light bulb moment of realizing, oh, this is the medium that gives the independent individual, someone who's not famous, doesn't have a big following, gives them a voice, a platform where their message could get heard by other people who need to hear what they have. I'm a firm believer that all of us have a message inside of us that is the exact message that someone else needs to hear. And it's the only voice that can make sense with it. And to quickly wrap that up with a story, one of my younger brothers, he went through a crazy phase, just like wild and partying and all that. And it's fine. That's what he loved to do. And I was supportive of that. But he always said he was unhappy. And so I kept on giving him the same advice over and over again. Every time we'd hang out or every couple of months, I'd just repeat it. And he'd be like, yeah, I know. And he would never do anything. And then one day I'm hanging out with this guy and he looks different. I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? He goes, dude, you won't believe it. He goes, I met this person and they gave me this advice. And he tells me the advice, saying, guess what, Baba? It's the same advice I had given him every month. And I'm like wanting to punch the guy. I'm like, are you kidding? But instead I just said, wow, that's really cool. And what I realized in that moment is I was saying the same thing that someone else was saying. It just took their voice saying it for it to make sense for somebody else's life. In my mind, that is the beauty of what podcasting can do for this world. I have had my life change from podcasts that I've listened to, and I believe that I've been used to change some other people's lives as well. So for me, my purpose, my calling, I believe, is to be here in this podcasting space to help elevate independent voices on both sides of the microphone, whether they be a podcast host or a podcast guest. Everything I want to transcend into other parts of my life. So like my personal life transcends into my business. I'm not two different people. There's not personal Alex and there's professional Alex. Like, no, they're the same person. And through, that's what I'm doing with my time. And I'll tell you what, it is absolutely a joy to beginning to do this.
I love that. First of all, you're a better person than I am because now this is how I feel as a teenager mother. Every day or every other day. It's like, we already talked about it. I already told you this. But it's a great perspective of sometimes we need to hear it from somebody else or in a different voice, in a different context, said differently. And I think you also are riding the wave of this hunger for real and authentic, as much as that word can be overused or maybe even meaningless, because it's so used now. But, this kind of culture where we want to see, hear, and be around something that is actually real.
I agree with you. I know that word authentic can be a little bit overused, but I think we're using it in the right context today. And that's what we're doing. Like, this is giving a voice to people. And And by the way, I've been listening to your podcast for a while, especially today, like leading up to this. I wanted to really be prepared. And I found myself just listening to more and more of your episodes. And one, you've got some incredible solo content. Like you were absolutely brilliant and like a light. You really, I don't know how else to describe it. I feel like you're just a light to other people. And some of the conversations that you're facilitating and hosting, though, like you're having conversations that it seems like the person on the other side of the microphone has never really even gotten the chance to share them before because no one's asked them those questions. And not only to help me as a listener, but I have to imagine it helps. It's probably very comforting for them and even somewhat therapeutic for them just being there, getting to actually share something that's no one's ever asked about before. And again, like that level of authenticity that like you've facilitated here with this podcast is beautiful. And I think that that's such a cool thing that this opportunity exists in the world and that it can go everywhere. Like anyone could find this and share it with one of their friends. And again, I just think that's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate the gift of seeing me that you are giving me. And I think that's also pretty rare in this world. And I have had people say after the podcast, I feel I had a therapy session. So that's wonderful that you're reflecting that and that you saw that. And I think that is how I knew that podcasting and interviewing is a part of my purpose because I love asking questions and I love having these conversations. It literally gives me energy.
I feel the same way. It's cool to hear someone say that. And by the way, it's a huge compliment when someone feels like they're in a therapy session after they get to talk to you. That's a really big compliment. I kind of hope I have that feeling today. So no pressure, but I'm happy to be here.
I love it. And I love your shirt that says love first for anybody who's not watching the video. Alex has a t-shirt on that says love first. Very applicable to the times.
I agree.
So, and I also picked up on the energy that you have, right? The passion that you are not only articulating, but it's like you're a beacon. You're sending out the signal for standing for what you just expressed.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's really important to me. Like, I want to live this. Like, yes, I have a shirt on that says the words "love first." It's funny. I always wear the same color shirts. It's just I'm a very simple individual, but all of my shirts have what I consider to be my personal core values on them. And today I put on "love first," and maybe that was intentional because we're going to be here today, right? And I kind of got the vibe from this show that would be fitting. But for me, like that is my number one core value, and in everything I want to transcend into other parts of my life. So like my personal life transcends in my business. I'm not two different people. There's not personal Alex and there's professional Alex. Like, no, they're the same person. And so by everything I do, I just remember there's such an important element of loving people first. And for me, like I follow Jesus from the Bible. So like I pulled it from that example of like, hey, I'm going to love and serve people. And then after that, if I get paid or I get recognition, great. But if I don't, it doesn't matter because I'm here to love and serve people first. And I think that leading with that example, I find to be really needed in today's world, and I hope it inspires others to do the same. And so, anyway, yeah, thank you for acknowledging that.
And I love that. I think it also brings this kind of conversation or framework of balance, work and life. I mean, it kind of brings it to more common sense and something that is just, much more simple. That's what it is. It's not like we are these different characters, which we've almost been trained to show up as different characters, right? In work and life for your kids, when you go to the bar, whatever you're doing, right? But that's the balance, is just you being you. You are showing up in all of those areas, but you're still you.
Yeah, I haven't always been that way, but I'll tell you what, like it's. In this line of work that I'm in now, the reason I really feel it's a purpose, it's a calling, is because I'm able to be completely aligned. And obviously I have days where things get out of balance. Like we all have our good and bad days. Like, so I'm not saying I've got it perfect, but in former careers I've had and things I've done, I did not flow like this. There was the work Alex and the home Alex. And, that misalignment is ultimately what I believe the good part about it is what led me to where I am today. But there was some out of alignment points in my life for sure.
Yeah, same here. I raise my hand, and like I think it's such a beautiful conversation and ability to see that for yourself, and there's no judgment. We're all right making choices or seeing how others act, and many times we act the same way or we see our leaders act, And then we always have an opportunity to recalibrate, right? Again, kind of this perfection is not needed. And kind of through making these choices, then we can reflect back and look and make different choices.
Yeah. That word you use, perfection. Have you ever been a perfectionist? I'm just curious if
Yeah.
you've ever.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. I'm glad I'm not alone. I was just curious. For me, I think that's ultimately that was the thing that messed me up. I wanted to be like the perfect employee when I was in like a corporate, like I came from aerospace, from a big corporate job, and I wanted to be perfect. And like the reality is, like, I'm a human. I'm already flawed. Like there's no way for me to be perfect. But I think that's where the disconnect happens. At home, I had grace for myself. At work, I didn't. Like it was all perform, all like perfection. I just think that's like a really dangerous place to be. I don't know if you had the same experience, but you nodded. Yes, perfectionism was a thing.
Yeah, and I think so many people will be able to relate. I think most of us know kind of the split and the divide, and then we feel this dissatisfaction, and we're trying. And this is where this conversation about the balance, and it's really until you start integrating it for yourself. I think in your own heart and soul, and building and kind of choosing almost it's like Legos, building your own character, and deciding, okay, these will be the values that I will pick, and I will start showing up more and more. Again, not perfectly. Obviously, if you don't get enough sleep, it's harder to show up and have all the grace, right? For if you have a lot of chaos and a lot of activity going on around you, but like affording the same values to yourself at the same time as to others.
Yeah, yeah, that's really well said. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that if I look back now, it's easy to say, "Oh, I could have done better." I mean, I think any of us can say that, right? Like, I look back at being a perfectionist, and if I could talk to that younger version of myself, even let's go back 10 years, I'd exchange words, and I wouldn't be as nice as I was to my brother. I'd probably hit 10-year younger Alex, right? But the reality is, the big thing I would say is like, stop trying to be perfect. Like, no one's holding you to that expectation. And the reality is, there's so many things I was doing to make it closer to perfect, right? Never perfect, but closer to it, that I was the only one who would ever notice that, including when I first got into podcasting. So I got into podcasting in 2013 is when I got started, and I'd edit for perfection. And the reality is, no one ever complimented my editing skills or said anything bad when I skipped something, right? Because I remember one episode went out, and like, oh, that wasn't perfect. No one noticed. So like, we're our toughest critic. The only person that ever expects us to have any level of perfection is ourselves. If I could go back to old Alex or younger Alex, that's what I would say. I'm like, stop. You're the one chasing it. You're the one after it, and no one else notices or cares. People are happy with well done. And so, anyway, for me, like, I think that's one of the reasons I found so much more fulfillment. Like, I don't do anything perfect. I work with excellence. I do my best in everything I do. But in the day, I know that like that's all I can do, and as long as it's done and in front of somebody, it's better than it sitting on a shelf waiting for perfection to catch up.
Yeah. I became a total rebel because I was in corporate America too, and I was like, bleep, bleep, perfection. I'm going to turn the other way.
Wait, why'd you become a rebel? What does that mean? Like, how'd you become a
Meaning,
rebel?
because I was such a good robot, such a good
Yeah.
achiever,
Okay.
such a good doer, such a good accomplisher of all the tasks that my soul would not care to get behind tomorrow if tomorrow was the last day.
And now you're different, huh? You've changed quite a bit.
Yeah. I was like, well, I blew up a lot of the frameworks that I was following. Yes, I'm like, light the fire, light it all on fire. So that's where the rebel comes from. But I think I saw your post somewhere, most likely on LinkedIn, where you said you were in HR. So tell us a little more about that journey and how you actually founded, how it led you to founding PodMatch.
Sure, yeah. And one clarification, I was more of an HR nightmare than in HR. So now at one point, though, I did oversee that department. So it was like a division I was overseeing. I will say I'm not like HR trained. I had a team that did that. And I'm joking by saying I was an HR nightmare. I like to think I was pretty easy to work with and for. And so like I had a whole team that was doing all that. But I was a senior executive in an aerospace company, and I oversaw 5 divisions of the company. It was a 15-year career, so I didn't start there. It's actually funny. I started as a part-time receiving clerk, so it meant I broke down boxes and took out people's trash, and so that's what I started off doing. And we were a parts manufacturer working below the atmosphere. Super fun job. Like I actually I loved most of my career. I would say, like, there obviously there's some rough patches anywhere in any business that you're growing with, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I will say, like, the company itself, a lot of this stuff I just can't. It was like military and stuff like that, so I don't share like a lot of the details. But not important. The company itself, though, was like, again, it was a joy to work for until a certain point. And if it's helpful, I can kind of just pick up the story from there, because it's 15
Yeah.
years is a long time, right? Like, but yeah, I'll pick it up from the spot. Like, I remember it was about the 10th year, or maybe the 11th year of me working there. The numbers get a little bit blurry. But the point being is the company had the opportunity to go from a privately owned mid-sized business to a publicly traded organization, part of a multi-billion-dollar organization, in fact. And so we had the opportunity, and so I was picked as one of the people to help with that transition. So going through, and that's where kind of like working with HR came in, like figuring out, okay, like what do we have to adopt to be $1 billion company versus a smaller organization, right? So, and it was really interesting. I learned so much, and I actually love the process of taking a company from public or private to public. Like, it was a lot of fun. But I'll never forget, after we finished that acquisition, it took years. Something changed, and that's what made me realize that maybe I wasn't cut out for this the way I thought I was. And what I mean by that is, so I was overseeing all these divisions of the company. At one point, I was meeting with one of my teams, and we saved like 10% margin in one of our manufacturing departments. That's really cool. Like, I was super excited about it. Again, we're part of a multi-billion-dollar organization. Like, 10% is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So, and I reported directly to the CEO. So I walked down the CEO's office, walk in there. I'm like, hey, do you see the numbers from XYZ division? And his response, Bible, was this. He goes, yeah, I saw them. And there's like distress in his voice. So I kind of leaned in, like, hey, so, like we saved that money, right? And he's like, no, I know. I saw the numbers. And again, like, frustration. So I just kind of like put my hands up. I was like, well, what's wrong? And he's like, man, we didn't plan for that. We didn't tell the shareholders. We didn't tell the board. Like, this wasn't something that was talked about. And actually, it was kind of a risky move. And I was like, well, yeah, but it worked. And he's like, but you can't do that anymore. And it turned to this back and forth conversation. And the reality is, he was right. Like, I was the one in the wrong. I was treating it like it was a small organization where you take big risks. Now we can't do that anymore. And I left his office that day, not in trouble or anything like that, but just walking back to my office a little bit down. And it was the first time ever in that building that I felt like the walk from his office to my office was a long commute. The reality is, it was just a few doors down from his, but it felt like I was walking really far that day. And I remember sitting back in my office and looking out the window and just thinking, like, I think it's time for me to go. Like, I think I'm done here. And up to that point, again, I had enjoyed the job, even though I was struggling with perfectionism, like in everything I did. Like, I was a top performer to my own health decline, right? Like, I was doing all that stuff. I didn't really notice until it hit the point where now I don't have like the creative freedom anymore. And that's when I started seeking a way out. And I do like to anytime I share this story, I feel the need to say this. That was year 13. I didn't leave till year 15. So I had 2 more years there. Those last 2 years were my best years I ever had there. They were my best. And I say that for a reason, because I believe the way we end one season is the way we begin the next. I knew I wanted to start my next thing on the right foot, so I needed to end on the right foot. So I didn't stop applying myself and like working on the side and doing all that, right? Like, sure, in the evenings, I was looking for something else. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But that was kind of like the beginning of what ultimately led me out of that, what ended up being a 15-year career. And I'm happy to continue the story, but I want to take a pause for a minute here, Bible, to let you fill in any gaps or anything like that if you feel the need.
Thank you so much for sharing it. And I can feel how it would leave most people deflated.
Yeah, that's the right way to say it. Deflated. I don't think I've ever articulated it that way. That's absolutely what it was. I felt deflated. I felt like I can't do anything right anymore, right? And for a recovering perfectionist or getting ready to start recovering, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, plus you delivered the results, right? That usually companies want results. You had the tangible receipts to show for all the work and effort. So you said it sparked something inside of you where you started taking action. Share more about what you did next.
Yeah. So I figured at this point, this is, by the way, what led me to like start overcoming this idea of perfectionism, because I was like, I'm really good at this. Like, I took a company public. I'm the youngest guy who sits in the C-suite level of this company. I either was the only one with hair, or the one without gray hair. And so I was like, man, I'm doing good, right? And so I was like, anything I do should work like this. And the reality is, I started a bunch of little side hustles just in the evenings and the weekends, just to see if there's other things I could do. I tried speaking, I like web design, I liked writing, I like consulting, like all these. I just tried everything that I seem to be good at and enjoy. And I'll tell you what, I crashed and burned on every single one of these things. Just nothing worked. Nothing. Well, either it wasn't fulfilling or I actually wasn't good at it. Like I wasn't even helping people deliver results, and I found it actually very frustrating. And I was kind of like, I remember going back like to myself, like internally, and being like, "What is wrong with you, Alex? Like maybe you just are a corporate guy, like maybe that's all you're cut out for." And at that point, I don't know if it was desperation. I'm not going to call it genius, but a lot of people are like, "Wow, that was really smart." I don't think I thought that much about it, but I decided to start a podcast. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to people who had successfully left a 9-to-5 job to become a full-time entrepreneur and learn, what did you do? How did you do it? And I just wanted to learn. I didn't know the show was going to do well, but the show did very well. And I learned the process. And and I'll quickly share what I learned. But I'm summarizing hundreds of what some of the most brilliant people I've ever met have said. So I don't want to like sell their information short. Basically, I learned 4 things. It's 1, find an area of passion. 2, get into the community of that area of passion. 3, find a problem they're struggling with, ideally a simple problem. And then 4, offer a solution, and ideally the fastest possible solution. So that 4-step framework is like, I was like, oh, well, maybe I could try this in my own life. What do I like outside of my job? Well, I had fallen in love with podcasting, like really learned to love it. That became my passion. I really loved it. And so I started getting myself into the community. I started speaking at the events, helping at the events, doing anything I could to basically get around other podcasters and form community around them. And I'll never forget this, but it was actually the beginning of 2020, right before the world shut down. I was at a podcasting conference. There's about 2,000 people in the room, and I was on stage speaking. And at the very end of my talk, I just said, hey, thank you for listening. If anyone will just give me 1 to 2 minutes of your time, I'd love to hear what you've got going on with your podcast. I'd love to give you a hug. I'll be right here on the side of the stage after, like, in the next few minutes here. And thankfully, I was the last session, so it was easy for me to go off stage and not someone else not jumping right on stage. And so I got off stage, and I'm very grateful. Hundreds of people talked to me that day. I had pen and paper in hand. I wrote down name, email address, and the problem that they were struggling with. Because I asked every single one of them, hey, what are you struggling with in podcasting right now? Again, going back to the framework. My passion was podcasting. I was in the community. I asked them, what are you struggling with? And what I continuously heard is I'm having trouble finding the right guest for my show. Or even if I can find the right guest, again, not any guest, the right guest, it's very cumbersome to get them on the show. There's a lot of administrative work. It takes a lot of work. And so I kind of went home with that idea, and I was like, who's someone who's done this right? And I thought of like the dating app world, which I've been married too long to ever be on a dating app, but I'm told, that they connect people, right? And so I wrote down on a whiteboard, like a dating app, instead of connecting people for dates, connecting podcast guest and host for interviews. And I was like, that's the idea. That's PodMatch. That's what we're going to create to be the solution to this problem. And at this point, I still had my full-time job. This was just something I was doing on the side, nights and weekends, once again. But that ultimately became the framework to release me from my corporate job.
That's amazing. First of all, when you're talking about trying different things, I see you as a kid in the playground. Like trying, because you have such a good attitude too. It's like contagious. You're like, oh, that sounds so fun.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. That's probably exactly what I looked like. Now, don't get me wrong. Like a kid, I probably cried after it didn't work, but I was down to try everything. I'm like, this looks fun. This looks cool. But yeah, you're probably exactly right. Someone more mature than me probably looked at me and been like, this kid, he's going to try to climb that, isn't he? Sure he is, and he's going to fall.
But I think there's so much wisdom. We can learn, actually put aside all of our conditioning, all of these pretend smart running frameworks, and actually do exactly that for the person who is looking, right? Who's seeking. Because I can also so relate to your story, because I started a podcast exactly because of that. I was looking for my own purpose. Wow. So I was like, let's just talk to people, because I'm seeking. So very, very relatable and united in that part of the journey. And what also came across to me, that you're very fast. You're kind of, how did these things, like the connections, happen to you?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to this idea of like kid in the playground. Like if I could go back to me when I was doing all these things and they were crashing and burning, I think that every failure gets you closer to your success. And so if I look back, like it's not truly a failure either unless you let it stop you, right? Like it's just something that didn't work. And if anything, it's like, great, I found out fast I didn't want to be a coach. That's perfect. Not because I don't think it's fun. I just don't think I have the true expertise for it. Like I think being a good coach takes a real like internal expertise I didn't have. And the fact that I figured that out without having to waste years trying, that's great. And so like I love that analogy. I think that if all of us could go back and think of ourselves as like that kid in the playground, right? With whatever we're doing, try it. If it doesn't work, you don't love it, try something else. I think that's the beauty of the world we live in today. There's unlimited opportunity now for us to try any different thing that we want to do. So I love that. You know, like I think that that's really cool. And to fill in the gaps and how it went quick, it was just a matter of learning that when you fall, you get yourself back up. And so for me, every time I fell, I just got myself right back up. What led me to the next thing? And I was actively seeking to do this. And I will say I have a very supportive wife who at that point, she owned a really successful clothing boutique at that point, online and brick and mortar. And so she was like, hey, whatever you want to do, like I'm here to support it. And so I'm really grateful to have had like that in my corner, her being like, just keep on trying stuff, keep on having fun. And so any door that opened at that point, because I didn't have anything I was pursuing, I went through to see how it would go. Like once you have something, I don't recommend going through every door, right? Like testing everything. Like once you find your lane, stay with it. But when you're exploring, I think it's so fun to just go everywhere and see what happens. For all I know, I could have started my podcast and hated that too, right? And I would have moved on to something else.
Yeah, because sometimes you can have the idea for years, right? You can have this idea. You mentioned coaching, right? You can see all the Instagram coaches and coaches for coaches and ads, right? And you can hold on to that dream somewhere outside of you without trying or pursuing it for years, just to find out if you actually try it for 2, 3, 6, 9 months that you hate it or it's totally not something that you want to do day in and day out. I mean, I think this should be taught in schools, like, because we get so serious about this linear model, right? And this is what also brings about the biggest handcuffs, then this fear of change, because the failure that you talk about is inevitable. But that it's not failure because, like, look at any company that makes something. How many beta tests did they have before they landed on the product that actually made it?
Yeah, a lot.
Right?
It's not any different. Yeah, it's not any different. Like when I was in aerospace, it's funny. Like I was such a perfectionist back then. When we were manufacturing parts, we do it 100 wrong ways before you find the right way to do it, like with everything. And that was just part of the process. Everyone knew, hey, we're going to have this much cost because we got to try all these things before we're going to get the right thing. Why I couldn't see that in my own mind, it took till after that to really realize it, right?
Yeah. But we have this impossible expectation of ourselves, then kind of keeps us frozen in a way.
Yeah. I think that one of my favorite quotes that I think really relates to this in the way that like I'm talking about this, and it's if we go back to Leonardo da Vinci, he said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I think that so many of us, we overcomplicate what we want to do, what we do. And if we can take a step back and just say, you know what, if this were simple, what would it take for me to do it? To try it, to see if I even like it, to see if I can get any traction at all. And I think if we go with that framework versus saying, hey, it's got to be perfect and then I can launch it and see if it works, go the other way. If this were simple, what would it look like? And do it as fast as you possibly can and see, do I like this? Does it resonate with other people? If so, let's work on continuous improvement, make it better, right? And I think that more of us could learn to really step into our genius if we'd be willing to try more things in that way.
Yeah. Relax and play.
That's it.
Get into the tree or the sandbox, whatever you need to do, and eat some ice cream.
Right?
Is your wife now, isn't she working with you, or does she still have the clothing?
She actually sold it at the end of the year in 2019, which there was no way to know that on that timing, but she had the opportunity to sell it like at the end of the year. And she asked me, she's like, well, what do you think? She'd worked hard on it. And for me, I was being very selfish because I was like, oh, I could have a wife on Christmas and New Year's. That would be great. Because in retail, like you work a lot during that time, right? I'm like, that'd be great. And the offer was what she wanted. And so she was able to exit. And so actually, when I like continuing my story of PodMatch, if it's okay, because it kind of relates. Is that right if I continue on that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so she ended up going on a sabbatical, which is exactly what I would suggest anyone to do. If you get that break in your life like that, like take the opportunity. Well, so January is when I spoke at that conference and had the idea for PodMatch, and I finished the idea by March 10th, 2020. And I called. I walked over to my wife and I called a friend as well who was a developer. But I basically was like, "Hey, the three of us could build this in nights and weekends, and we could see if this works, if this serves podcasters." And we ended up signing paperwork. And we became three partners in the company, and we hit the ground running. So that was March 10th, 2020. And keep in mind, I still had my full time job. Alicia was the only one between the three of us that didn't have a job at the point. She was on her sabbatical, so she's like, "Hey, I can handle a lot of the administration. I'm a good operations person. I'm a good support person. Like I can handle all that." So we basically started working. And so went from March 10th, 2020 till June 15th, 2020 is when we launched into an early beta. And I took out that notepad where I wrote down everyone's name, email address, and what they're struggling with, right? That group of people at the event. And I emailed every single one of them saying, "Hey, you told me this is what you're struggling with. Can you tell me if this PodMatch thing works? Does this solve the problem that you said you have?" And to talk about doing a full 180, by the way, I've been talking about perfectionism a lot, right? When we launched, we didn't have a logo. Every page took 10 seconds to load, and I had typos everywhere. Now, not that I went the other way and just threw it out the window. Like, I still have a spirit of excellence, for sure. But I just knew if we're going to do what's called a real MVP, minimum viable product, put the least amount of money and time into this thing, we're going to have to take some shortcuts. Because all I want to do at this point is find out one thing. Does this solve the problem that you told me you have? Yes or no? And I can remember, Bible, right when people joined, they were like, "Hey, it's great, but why is there no logo?" And I was like, "That's not my question yet. I just need to know, does this work? Would you use this?" "Oh yeah, this is great." "Hey, it's taking too long to load." I'm like, "Not my question. Would you use this? Is it solving the problem?" And the answer, again, was yes. And at that point, we shifted gears to saying, okay, now it's time to focus on continuous improvement. And that's where Alicia, my wife and business partner, came in, and she was like, "Okay, let's find out and document what people are struggling with or what they're saying they don't like, right? Like what's the pain points that we've created by not building this product at an excellent level yet?" And so one at a time, we just started working on it. And for me, once again, this was night and weekend. But I'm so grateful. Like this product hit. I mean, within 2 weeks, we reached what our goal was in the first year. Like what I estimate would be our first year's amount of money we bring in, the amount of people using it, the amount of traction it would get. I said in 1 year, probably about this, and within 2 weeks, we hit that number. And so it was like very quick, right? Like, and I'm so grateful for that. So again, like that's kind of how like my wife and Jesse is the other partner. He's the developer, and I do more sales, marketing, and this type of thing. But that's how the three of us really started working together and kicking this thing off. Once again, me only doing nights and weekends, and Jesse, same thing. We both had full-time jobs at that point.
That's amazing. So PodMatch is, in layman's terms, it's a platform for podcast hosts and people who want to be guests. Is that correct? Or how
That's
would
right.
you explain it in super simple terms?
That's exactly how to explain it. And basically what the system does from there, it's both you can join as a guest or as a host. And then at that point, the system is smart enough to look at your profile and determine, okay, your expertise is in transitioning from a corporate role to an entrepreneur. Here's a podcast host that's looking for a guest to talk about that. And then you can message on the platform, you can schedule on the platform. You never have to exchange an email if you don't want to. You can handle it all from right there, which once again, to me is like the beauty of like making the automation for all the administrative tasks that are involved. Because as you know, as a podcaster, like there's a lot that goes in this behind the scenes. We call it a labor of love, right? Because I'm a podcast host too. Like it's a labor of love, and listeners don't necessarily know how much goes into it. But we were like, if we could simplify it so we can just get people in the room faster, like that's a win. So yeah, I think you did a good job describing it. It's a place, it's a network, it's a community for guests and hosts to get together and meet and ultimately create great podcast episodes for listeners.
That's how I found out about you. I saw a LinkedIn post that you did or PodMatch did, and then I joined myself. So anybody who is hosting a podcast, I definitely highly recommend joining PodMatch. Alex is amazing. I still get like notes from him. He is walking the talk and personally tends to people, answers people. I mean, you're amazing, and I mean it wholeheartedly. And
Thank you.
all the spirit, the character, the energy that's oozing through, it's exactly who you are. And it's very, very admirable. What would you say, first of all, 2020 March, it's when the world is starting to shut down. Are you like freaking out? Like what was going through your head? You're just starting this thing.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, so like, yeah, actually, I can share. I left my company in 2020. If I can share that real quick to kind of pick up where we left off, if that's all right. I was freaking out for sure. 2020 hit, and we're like working on the software. I'm like, oh, great, like, and for the first time ever, like, this was my 15th year in that aerospace organization, and it's the first time I ever had to like learn to shift my entire team from in person to remote. So we went full remote as a team. And granted, we had like the warehouse manufacturing, like they were all still in offices and kind of just that's where HR really came in. That was over my league. At that point, I passed that off, which I'm really grateful for. Someone took over who was much smarter than me to figure out how to do all that. But yeah, at first I was like, great, I'm trying to start my own product. And I've got a good feeling about this one. I'm having fun. But two, now I have an entirely new challenge. After 15 years, I didn't know it was my last year yet, but I'm like, I'm doing something totally different. Like, what do I do here, right? I guess timing is always everything, and I don't like to give myself more credit than I deserve because that was the right year for me to start doing this without even realizing it. I wasn't hanging out with friends in the nights and weekends. Like that wasn't a thing anymore. So like me working basically around the clock wasn't a problem. And so like not that I say anyone should do that, have some balance. I was completely out of balance, but I don't think this would have worked if it were a different year or a different time. And so like when we launched on June 15th, 2020, everyone was just on their computers and there wasn't a lot of things, like there wasn't a lot going on yet, right? People were just trying to figure out hobbies. And I posted about PodMatch launching, which I only post about things about the aerospace industry, but I posted on LinkedIn and it went absolutely viral and people signed up and joined. And interestingly enough, around that time was right when I had really gone into a good stride with my team working remote. Like we really figured it out. We honed it in. And again, my last 2 years, they were my best. Like I put in all the effort and we were crushing it. We did so good as a company that year. And, but we started making money with PodMatch. And this was still to this day one of the toughest decisions I've ever made in my life. The writing was on the wall. I kind of hit this point where even though I was working like crazy because it was COVID year, right? Like even though I was working like crazy, PodMatch and my aerospace job were both starting to suffer because I wasn't putting enough into them. I had to pick one or the other. And it was that point where it's like, okay, either of these might do well. I have to make a choice. And I'll never forget, like I really struggled with this. Like this was really, really difficult for me. And what I ultimately ended up doing, I picked up a few books and I was listening to people just trying to figure out like, what's the right move? Like, I don't know what to do, like, and I picked up a book and it was called High Performance Habits. It's by Brendan Burchard. And he had 6 high performance habits. And it was funny. I don't mean to sound like private, but I'm going through this. I'm like, oh, I'm so good at this one. Oh, I'm so good at that one. Oh, I got this one down here. Like, I'm a high performer for sure. And I get to the very last one. And the last one is this word, courage. And I start reading about courage. And I instantly go from patting myself on the back to like, this is the missing piece for me. I'm lacking courage. And when I really sat down to reflect on this, I was like, I'm not leaving my aerospace job because it's good. It's comfortable. After 15 years, there's a lot of perks that go with it. I've worked hard to get here. I've got a legacy here. And on the flip side, I've got PodMatch. Unknown, no guarantees, no perks, very little money, but potentially great. And so I realized I had to make a decision. Was I willing to sacrifice the good, my aerospace job, for the sake of the potential great, this startup that might be great? And by the way, I say potential great. There was no guarantee. It could have crashed and burned, right? Was I willing to say good isn't enough for me? I want great. And the reality is, what I realized the missing element in me making that decision was courage. And when I really sat down and thought about the word courage, I ended up with these words in my head. Courage means being afraid than doing what you have to do anyway. Mm-hmm. Courage means being afraid than doing what you have to do anyway. And I remember when those words hit me, I wrote them down. I realized I'm like, I have to make it. It's time. I got to have some tough conversations, but it's time for me to sacrifice this good for the sake of potential great. I'm a calculated guy. I open up Excel spreadsheets and determine, here's how much money I have in savings. Here's how long until I think I can pay the bills the way I do now. Like, do I have enough savings to make it there? I had it all planned out, right? Because listen, I had to go to my boss, who was my wife, and make sure that she was going to be okay with this. Because remember, she didn't have her boutique anymore. She was on sabbatical, but starting to work a little bit with PodMatch. And that was the scariest moment for me. I'm like, oh man, I'm almost as scared as I was when I asked her to marry me. Like I'm like right just a little bit below that. And she was super supportive. She's like, hey, if it's time, let's do it. I also called my dad, who was the one who got me into aerospace in the first place. He comes from that industry. And so I was just like, what do you think? And he was even more like just as supportive, like just really like excited about it. And so I went into the office, even though we didn't do that much. The CEO was going to be there, so I asked if I could meet with him. And I was sweating. And I was like, hey, I'm here to put in my resignation. And he just looked at me and he's like, really? And he's like, you know, we're at the end of like, we're in the last quarter of 2020. He's like, I've got a really big bonus for you, but I can't give it to you this year. It's a COVID year. Like we already big corporate, like we're a big organization. They're holding off till next year. But I'm like, but he's like, your 5 divisions are the top performing in the entire company. He's like, I've got a big bonus for you. Like, can you wait? And I was just like, no, I can't. And he goes, I've never known you to be a guy who's motivated by money. He shook my hand and he asked me to give him 90 days. He's like, give me 90 days. I can't do the 2-week thing. I need 90 days from you. I was like, all right. So we just tapered it off. But I'll never forget that last day. Like I passed it off, but that last day I went back in the organization, still COVID. There was no party. There was no like going away thing. It was me and the person who was now running HR. And she just basically did my exit interview and stuff like that. But I stood in the parking lot that day and I cried. Like I'm not much of a crier, but man, I lost it. I was just there, just by myself. It was just me. There's no one there. It was her inside the other side of the building. It was a giant building. I just cried. It's one of those things where I was like, well, I guess I burnt the ships on this one, right? Like there's no going back. There's no boat to go back to anymore. Like I go home and I start my new job, which is something with no guarantee, but you know what? It might be great. Maybe it will be great, but I don't know. And that was the close of a chapter and the beginning of a next one. And to make a long story short now, at the end of it here, it's ended up being great. I love that career. I'll always be thankful for it. I learned a lot from it, but where I am now, like this is a calling. I am where I'm supposed to be. I've been saying this a lot lately, that if I was put on the earth to do something, it's what I'm doing right now. This is the legacy that I'm going to be able to leave. And it took taking courage, overcoming this idea of perfectionism, and trying new things and having fun along the way. And it's been absolutely a joy to be able to do this.
Love it. Did the person that you gave your resignation to, was that the same person who told you or reprimanded you about the 10% saving?
Yes, that was 2 years before. So I don't think he remembered that. He had a big job.
We did.
But it was the same guy. I shouldn't tell him this is why I was. I didn't tell him this is why I was leaving. So that's funny.
I was like, was that the same guy? What would you say to somebody now in corporate, in a job, but has that pull on their heart, right? That kind of that ache, that wanting, that knowing that there must be something more, but they don't know what their thing is, or they don't know what to try and what to do.
It's all about being creative and exploring and trying things. And I say being creative. A lot of people don't know this, but creativity is actually a muscle. We learn to not be creative versus learning to be creative. And there's actually some multiple studies have been done, but there's one really popular one, and I cannot remember the name of the person, but you can go look this up on any search engine or any AI tool. And basically, there was this individual who decided like he wanted to learn about creativity and he wanted to study it. And so he asked thousands of kids that were going into kindergarten and first grade even, and asked them like, how creative do you think you are? And 98% said, I am very creative. And then ask another group about the same amount of people that were coming out of high school. Hey, how creative do you think you are? And only 2% said that they're creative. So we went from 98% as little kids down to 2% as coming into an adulthood. And the reason I bring that up is because many of us, I'm not saying anything wrong about like the system or schooling or anything like that. Like there could probably be some changes, yes. But what I'm saying is we have to redevelop that muscle. And I think if you're in corporate and you've just kind of followed this path that the world is set out for us more or less, but you want something different, you have to re-exercise this idea of my internal creativity. What am I good at? Start developing that muscle, and then you'd be shocked what you might be able to do and what you find, what you end up loving. But get out there and don't be married to results. Bible painted one of the most beautiful pictures I think I've ever thought about before. Think about yourself as a kid in the playground having fun. Like eventually every kid figures out what they like the best and what they're scared of, right? And like what they don't want to do, what they do want to do. They figure it out by trying it. And I think for all of us, we need to just have that mentality and grace with ourselves to say, I'm just flexing my creativity. I'm getting it stronger and having fun. That is the advice I'd give to everyone out there who's saying, hey, I think there might be something else for me. Try it. Let's see if there is.
I love that. And I can relate to what you said about the sentiment and almost the conviction that you're not creative. I remember, was it in my 20s or early 30s? Like I heard an executive say, I'm not a creative person. And I raised my hand and I was like, me neither, you know? And now I'm like the most creative person. Like I have ideas. I want to try this. I'm like the total kid in the sandbox, you know? And that is very, very true.
Yeah, and I love that. It's funny, like 'cause I would have said the same thing. You would have asked me in that boardroom if I was creative. I'd be like, nah, but I'm good
Yeah.
at spreadsheets and numbers. And the reality is, I was good at that, but turns out I'm also really creative, like you are.
Yeah. And how you talked about like kind of before PodMatch having different ideas. How did they come to you? Like, how did you generate them? And you said web design, I think, was one of the things. It sounded like you had a multiple, uh, like a list of things that you were trying.
Yeah, anything that looked interesting to me. And I can remember at one point, like I discovered WordPress actually through my company. We were redoing the website. We we're working with an agency, and they're using WordPress. And I was like watching them do it. I'm just a curious person naturally. So like looking, I was like, this looks sweet. Like that looks like a lot of fun. I want to do that. So it's one of those things I just kind of like recalled everything I had done in my life and what seemed like it'd be fun. So for me, like I'm down if there's a low barrier to entry. Like I don't necessarily look for free things, but I'm down if I'm not like using my life savings to try something. And so especially back then, I was like, yeah, sure. Like I can start a WordPress website and launch this, and I could be $500 in, and I can play around and see if it works or not, right? Like, and for some people that might be a lot of money, so maybe don't try that. But there's plenty of things. Just to anything that seems at all interesting to you, piques your interest even a little bit, like try it, explore it. Not to become the master of it, just to go a little bit deeper, and then you can decide, nah, this isn't for me, right? Like maybe I don't want to do this. But again, anything that's a rejection, even internally, is just a redirection to what's actually going to lead you to the right thing that you want to do.
Yeah. And have you always had this much energy and enthusiasm and positivity?
Um, I don't know. Like maybe I think my mom always says I was very quiet as a kid, which is funny to me. Like, like even as a little kid, she's like, "You're real quiet, real reserved, and stuff like that." I think as I became an adult, I came more into myself. Again, I found my faith, and I talked about that earlier. Like that's really important to me. I think I just really discovered who I actually am. Versus who I was during the schooling years, right? I think I felt very suppressed, but never in a way that it was depressing or sad. But I'm much more energetic now. I was born in 1988, if anyone wants to do some math to figure out my age. And so I feel more energetic now than I ever have. So, like in my teens, in my 20s, even into my early and mid 30s, like now I'm the most energetic I've ever been. And so I think I think it's always been there. I just had it suppressed for such a long time. Maybe it's just like an explosion of energy now. So I don't know.
Do you think you came more even into the aliveness and yourself more fully once you started PodMatch? Like once you were on your own and kind of fully stepped into this mission?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, and I'll regularly mention this to friends because they're like, "Man, you're doing so good." I'm like, "Thank you." Like, I was good at what I did in the aerospace world, and I was good at like, business makes sense to me. Like, I've learned it really well over the years, right? I understand what it takes, but this like software startup mentality, agile, fast, like this is like I'm realizing like this is what I made for. Like, it's so aligned with my energy. As a matter of fact, like PodMatch won't be the last thing I do in my life. Like I think all of us know, like nothing is forever, right? At some point, it'll pass on to a different leadership. It'll be sold. Like none of that's on my mind right now. Like I can't even think about that. That makes me scared to even think about. Like I'm loving this way too much. But at some point that'll happen because the reality is I can only take things so far, and then it's better equipped to be in the hands of somebody else, right? Like anything in life is going to be like that. And so for me, like right now though, this is the thing, and yeah, it absolutely feeds energy both ways. Like I hope that anyone who uses PodMatch feels like they're working with me, and that's kind of the way we've designed the whole thing. Is that it should feel like an extension of Alex and vice versa.
Yeah. And what came to me as you were saying that, the things that work for you, that you're like a fish in the water.
Yeah, a big ocean, and I'm a little fish.
I'm playing a lot. I love it. And as you were saying about like the change in what you do or natural evolution, I mean, that's a given. Years ago I interviewed Jeff Brown. He's a New York Times bestselling author, and he compared like the purpose, even what you're doing it as changing. It's kind of like the highway and taking exits, right? And there are different exits at different point of time that you take. So nothing is ever stagnant.
Yeah, nothing's forever. But the nice thing is, if we look at life as a journey instead of a destination, including our work, it's a journey, not a destination. You can find a lot of joy along the way. It'd be like, imagine this: imagine you're going to some beautiful state park or some national park, whatever it might be, and you heard there's big waterfalls toward the end. Like, no one just rushes their way through that. There's plenty of beautiful things along the entire path. And so, like, it's no problem thinking, oh, this is a journey. We'll get to the waterfalls, but first, like, look at this, look at that. Like, there's animals right there. Like, look how beautiful this is, right? And too many of us, we don't look at our work that way, or even our lives that way. We look at our lives as destinations we're trying to sprint to. Just sprint to this one, sprint to that one. But the reality is, a lot of this journey is actually really beautiful if you just slow down enough to actually look and enjoy it. And so for me, like, I'm not going to be the guy for any point in my life that is trying to bring the next season into fruition, into my reality. Instead, I just say, right now, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to make the absolute most of it, have a lot of fun doing it. I think that for all of us, even if you're like longing to leave a corporate job, enjoy the last little bit of like the true stability that you have with that, right? Like, if you've got your medical bills paid and covered through benefits and stuff, great. Enjoy that for a little bit and just let the journey kind of ride. Now it's up to you to take your steps, right? Continue moving forward, but enjoy it along the way. And I think that if more of us learn to do that, we'd have far more fulfilled lives and they wouldn't feel so fast all the time either.
Hmm. So tell us, how did your own experience, your day to day, how you felt, your state of being change when you worked for somebody, right? When you worked in a corporate setting versus when you went and worked full time in your own thing.
Yeah. So first off, I'm a really competitive individual, and also like to set a good example. And so me and one other guy, we were both very competitive. We always tried to see who could get to the office first in a day and who could leave last. That's a really toxic trait that both of us had. So it wasn't out of the normal for me to show up at 5 a.m. And guess who's already there? I'm like, oh, Jonathan beat me here again, or vice versa, right? And then I'm looking out the window. I'm like, his car's still here. I'm not leaving. We worked on different floors, and so, but I'm like, he's still here. I'm not leaving yet. I can find more work to do. There's always work to do, and so I really based my lifestyle around my work. And so I went to bed when I needed to wake up when I needed to. And like I made sure all the things, right? Like packed my lunches, did this, did that, whatever was quick, whatever was easy, so I could work right. Needed the right clothes. The reality is, I love wearing the same color T-shirt every single day. I actually only own one color T-shirt, and I'm wearing that color right now. It's like a gray blend, right? Like that's literally, and that some people like laugh at you. My friends like, man, you're so simple, but that's more aligned with who I am. I just like that. I don't like to have to think about what I'm going to put on, and so, and also. Now I have a start time of 8 a.m. That's when I like to start. I like to wake up at 6. The first 2 hours of my day are my own. I like to take a break in the middle of the day to work out, which I used to have to work out late at night because I was having to wait till I got off work. I like having a break in the middle of my day to work out. And then I like eating on multiple times per day. Like, I enjoy smaller meals and eating a lot. So, and I can now do that. So I have built my lifestyle around, or my company around the lifestyle that I want to live. And it's great. And I work about 44 hours per week, which is exactly where I like to be. I work 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. I take a full Sabbath on Saturday and Sunday. I put in about 4 hours. And that's great for me. And I have no plans on that changing at all. So for me, like, I have now built a lifestyle that my work can reflect. And I really love that versus the alternative. I think that in my mind, that might be one of the biggest benefits of becoming an entrepreneur, owning your own business, is that you can build it around you. You do have to work. So don't think I'm like sleeping till noon ever. Like, I'm up at 6 a.m. every day, like I'm very disciplined with that. And I go to bed at 10, but I built that and I love it. I think that's what feeds so much of the energy and passion I have, is the fact that my life is very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, 100%. And is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to share?
I think that a lot of us sell ourselves short with what we're able to do. Even with me trying things, some of the things I tried were me saying this would bring in enough, it would be okay. It's a little less than I'm probably going to make right now in corporate, but if it worked, it'd be okay. I could live off of that. And I think that all of us need to not sell ourselves short. The way I like to say this is that each of us has greatness and creativity within ourselves. We all have greatness. We all have creativity. Don't sell yourself short and make yourself less than you are. There's something out there that you can do that you'll be very fulfilled by, and maybe doesn't bring in millions of dollars, and it doesn't need to, right? But it'll be more than enough for you to be able to live a lifestyle that you want to live, because when you're in that space, you can really inspire others. So that message I want to leave that we didn't really talk about is just, you have that greatness and creativity within yourself. It's up to you to explore it and find it and bring it into your reality.
Thank you for saying that, because I think this is what's actually really, really needed in this world. And I try to end every episode with the reminder that you are more magnificent and more powerful than you can ever imagine.
It's beautifully said. It's so good.
And also the love, we need more love. So also the reminders that you are so loved are, I think that's what will make for a better world, on this planet. And another thing that came to me, I remembered now, when you were talking about the decision, right, to go all in with PodMatch, you had supportive people in your life. So talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of us lack confidence when we're stepping into something new, and we should. It's unknown, right? So it's scary, and I can't think of anyone in my life that doesn't have 100 people to thank for getting where they are today. Like anyone who's achieved something, like we think back, like there's no such thing as a self-made anything, right? Like everyone's got somebody, and so for me, like I needed this support, and that's why I went straight to my wife, who gave me that pat on the back. I was like, go. I was like, great. Talk to my dad, who pumped me up to go, right? And then ultimately, even the CEO is like, hey, I know you're not motivated by money. That was very encouraging to me. I'm like, you know what? He's right. I'm not motivated by money. Like, he didn't mean for that to be encouragement, but it was. And I felt supported by him being like, let's make an exit plan of 90 days. Like, all those things really worked. I had friends that I told about this, my other business partner, Jesse, and everyone was very supportive. At the same time, I gave them the permission to tell me if I'm crazy. Right? Like, is this a bad idea? Like, we didn't talk about that, but I gave everyone the permission. Like, if I'm being stupid and I'm about to jump off a bridge, somebody stop me, like, and the reality is no one felt that way. And to this day, I have a lot of accountability in my life. I have friends with free reign to tell me whatever they want. And sometimes I get scolded by my friends, and that's great. And I love that because I think it takes a true friend to basically be like, Alex, that's out of alignment. That's not who you are. And I love that. And I need that. And that to me is very motivating and encouraging. If you don't feel that you have people in your corner when you're going through this, start developing those relationships now. And if you're like, well, I'm not thinking about leaving for a few years, that's fine. Dig your well before you're thirsty, right? Start making those friendships now. Build that closer bond so that when the time comes, you have that proper support system. And not people that are just going to be like, yeah, you can do it. People are going to be real with you and be like, well, you can. Here's 3 things that you're going to have to change, right? Like you want that type of person in your life. And so for me, I'm thankful. I had that support structure. I had building that for years before that. So it wasn't like I was going out seeking it anywhere I could. It was like, I've already got a really good foundation of people in my life. They're going to be really real with me. And I think that's key for any of us. So start developing those relationships now. You never know when you need them.
Ideally, yes. It's the same thing. If you have that call on your heart and you still have a job, ideally start planning and start taking steps right now in a perfect world, for sure. And I also wanted to ask you if you want to share anything else, because you mentioned faith, you mentioned kind of some things outside of what we discussed already that was instrumental in you going from that kind of more shy, more quiet kid to kind of now fully blossoming, like fully being alive and animated, and you're just everything shining through.
Yeah, I think that for all of us, it takes a bit of that self-discovery, and we just don't follow the mold the world has for you. Still to this day, the most common thing, like someone asked recently, was actually, I think it was on one of the social media platforms, a friend of mine posted it and said, hey, what's the biggest misunderstanding about you? Not just me, but they post it in general. And I wrote that people think I'm fake. And that's the truth. The biggest thing that people think about me is that I'm fake. And like no one's ever that happy all the time or that enthusiastic. Like you got to be doing something wrong in the background. And I like to think I'm not perfect, but like I like to think there's nothing like sketchy and like I don't do anything behind closed doors. So people are like, oh yeah, he has to be fake. And I think that the world's going to put those type of labels on all of us. And so like I'm speaking from my own experience here, but I do think that like when you start stepping into who you are, it's going to be weird and be different because the most of the world around us is completely suppressed. But I'll tell you what, as soon as people get to know me, they realize I'm not fake. Like I'm real. And they're like, oh, this is actually the energy he has. Like he's the type of person you want to be around. And I love hearing that, not because I need the pat on the back or I need the credibility or the influence to grow. Just knowing like I must have encouraged them to live differently in a positive way. And it's simply how I'm living. And for me, all that does go back to my faith. Like there was a point in my life where I didn't have God to when I did. And I'll tell you what, like still this day, that is the foundation of who I am, how I run my business, how I interact with my wife, my friends, everything. And so for me, like I do think it's really important that we find our faith. And I'm not here to like preach to anyone, but really exploring that I think is really important. And this is totally disconnected from the work we do, from the identity we form. But I do think it becomes the identity that we are, right? Like versus like what we're trying to seek out. So I don't have much more to share on that, Biba, but I'll pass it back over to you. But I just encourage you all to really think about exploring that.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. How can people find you, connect with you, and get more of you?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Everything I do is at podmatch.com/free. So that URL, podmatch.com/free, it'll give you 9 quick ideas to becoming a podcast guest, becoming a podcast host. If you already are a podcast guest or host, again, 9 quick ideas. I don't ask for your email address or anything like that. But also, if you want to connect with me, you can find everything about me from that same spot there. And again, that's podmatch.com/free. And I do always still like to say, I feel like I have to in this world that we live in now, which is kind of sad. But if you reach out, you're not getting an AI, you're not getting a virtual assistant, you're not getting an executive assistant, you're getting me. And if I'm really busy, you'll get my wife, Alicia, who'll say, Alex will be right back with you. And so anyway, you reach out, social media, email, anything, you're going to find me. But it's all at podmatch.com/free.
Alex, thank you for your courage and thank you for your heart. It comes through in
Thank you.
everything you said, in how you presented yourself, and in everything you do.
Thank you. That seriously means a ton. And honestly, honored to be here. Like you're doing such a good job with this show. And I can't imagine how many people it's serving and supporting. So thank you for letting me be part of this. And also thank you for being one of the people that's really helped me as well with the show. As a listener, I can say that it's been positively impactful in my life as well. So thank you again for what you do.
What resonated most with you from our conversation with Alex?